Let me show you how to knit a swimsuit cover. Hey, it's Denise. For a complete list of supplies and more information, please visit the website at lumehead.com/swimsuit-cover. Let's begin with the cast on. I'm using a single strand of worsted weight yarn and I'm going to secure it to the anchor peg with a simple knot. You can use a slip knot if that's easier. And then I'm going to wrap 40 pegs. For this sample at the beginning of the video, I actually used 36, which gives you a smaller version of the cover. So once I get to peg 40, then I'm going to wrap and turn and knit that last peg 2 times. So here's the first one, and then I'm going to come back around and knit that same peg again. And now I'm going in the opposite direction. So I'm using the U-wrap version of the knit stitch, which means you're going to half wrap your peg and then with your hook take the bottom loop over the top and knit off. Half wrap and knit off. And when I explained that I use the 36 peg loom for this smaller version, that is not going to determine the width of your cover, but instead it's going to determine the length, because as you can see, we are knitting flat, right? We're not going in the round, we're going back and forth. And so what you're knitting as far as number of pegs is the length of your, let's call it your skirt, right? So if you want a longer skirt, then use a long loom and use more pegs. Alright, let's continue, and we're going to end this row. And once you knit off this peg, you're done with your cast on and we're ready for row 1. For row 1, you're going to knit the first 2 pegs and then you're going to do the mock mesh stitch. So let's wrap peg 1 and knit off, and you're doing the E-wrap version of the knit stitch. So you're going to completely wrap your peg. Let's do that second knit stitch. So you're going to wrap that peg completely, take your hook, flip that stitch and knit off, and now you've done the 2 knit stitches and we're ready for the mock mesh, which is done over 3. So go back, wrap peg 1, you're going to skip peg 2 right there and wrap peg 3, and so you have 2 stitches on 3 and 1. Go ahead and knit off peg 3 and go to peg 1 and knit off. Alright, we're going to repeat that same thing again. Your working yarn is on your new peg 2 right here, so you're going to go back to peg 1 and wrap peg 1, skip peg 2 and wrap peg 3. And now hold on to your working yarn, knit off that bottom loop on 3 and on 1. And then you start that same process again. Your working yarn is peg 2, go back to peg 1, skip peg 2, wrap peg 3, and then knit off. And now your old peg 3 is your new peg 2, so you're going to go back, wrap peg 1, skip peg 2 and wrap peg 3, and you're going to knit off those 2 pegs. And now your old peg 3 is your new one. You go back, wrap peg 1, skip peg 2 and wrap 3 and knit off. Keep knitting. Alright, you're on the last repeat of the stitch pattern in order to finish row 1. And once you knit off, now you're ready for the second row, which is actually just a repeat of row 1. So you're going to knit that peg again, which is your knit 1, and the next one will be your knit 2, and then you start that mock mesh stitch pattern again, because that peg 2 is where your working yarn is. So you're going to go back and wrap peg 1 right here, wrap it, and then you're going to skip peg 2 right here and wrap peg 3, and then you're going to knit off. And make note of the fact that you're going in the opposite direction now, right? You're going back and repeating that same stitch pattern, just in a different direction. That's all. Alright, so keep knitting, and for 35 inches we did 50 rows, and if you need it to be wider than 35 inches, just do more rows. And remember to take the knot off the anchor peg after a few rows. Here's a row count and peg count for the 2 separate covers. When you're done knitting all of your rows, you're ready for the super stretchy bind off. You're going to take the working yarn and you're going to wrap it around your loom at least 1.5 times. You can do a little more, a little less, just to be conservative, and then with your scissors cut the yarn. Now go back to that last peg that you knit, and we're going to go from this peg over to the one next to it here and bring the yarn back. Alright, so from the top with your hook, scoop the working yarn up, and now let's go back to that last peg, and from the top, see where the working yarn is, you're going to take your hook in the bottom and scoop that top loop down. And now we're going to skip that next peg, and from here take the yarn past that one to the next one over here, and you're going to take the hook from the top and scoop your yarn up. Then you're going to go back to the peg that you skipped, which was that middle peg right here, and from the top you're going to bring the yarn down and then tighten your yarn. Alright, that was to start. You can now remove that last peg, and we're going to tighten the yarn and do the same thing that we did. So we're going to skip that middle peg and start here. This is the routine you're going to follow. Now you sped the yarn up, so you're going to go back to the peg that you skipped, and from the top scoop down. Skip that next peg. You can remove the yarn here, and it's going to help you keep your bind off nice and tight. And that way you're always working on 3 pegs. Try to keep the yarn as tight as possible. And now you're going to skip a peg, go to the next one, and from the top scoop up. Go back to the peg that you skipped, right, which is here, and take your hook from the bottom, scoop down. You see how you have 4? You can remove the last one so that you're always working with 3. So now you have 3 pegs, right? And your yarn is on the middle one right here. So you're going to skip the next one, go to that one, and from the top you're going to take your hook and scoop up the working yarn and feed it through, and then you're going to go back to the peg that you skipped right here, and from the bottom scoop down. And now you can remove that last peg. You're back to 3, right? You're going to tighten your yarn, and you know where your yarn is. It's at that middle peg, and so you're going to skip the peg that's next to it right here and go to the next one. So take your yarn over there from the bottom and scoop up the yarn and go back to the peg that you skipped, always keeping your yarn nice and tight, and from the top scoop down. Now you see that your yarn is at the bottom, right? That gives you it's like a cheat sheet. It tells you where you're going to put your working yarn. And personally, I prefer a needle over a hook. And so from now on, I'm going to show you how to do with the hook. So you're going to skip the next one, go to that one. From the bottom, you're going to go up. And you see that my working yarn was on the bottom. Now it's on the top. So I know I need to place the working yarn on the top. And so I feed from the top down. Now I'm using a needle as opposed to a hook. But it's the same basic thing. You remove the last one and you're working with 3 again. So you're going to skip that one and go to the next one. And scoop up. And your yarn is on the top. And so from the top, you're going down. And you see how you're placing the working yarn on the bottom? That means you're going to go from the bottom up. So remove the last one, skip a peg, and now from the bottom up is how you're going to feed the working yarn. And the last process that you did lets you know what you're doing next. So you're skipping a peg, going from the bottom up. Your yarn is on top, so you're going to go from the top down. See, I want you to see the pattern to doing this. So just finish your loom, go all the way to the other end, which is where we're at here. Continuing to do that same process, right? You continue to remove the last one. You're working on 3 of them, and you're going to skip a peg, go from the bottom up, go back to the peg that you missed, and feed from the top down. And now we're at the last 3. So we're going to pay attention here, right? You're going to scoop up and see it wants to come off. No big deal. Just put it back on. It's because it's a little loose. You're going to go back to the one that you missed. And then because you're finishing here, you want to go back and knit again that last one. You see? And then take that off and you're done. There you go. You finished. Well, you're finished with your first piece of 2 pieces that it takes to finish this project. So here's your edges. I wanted you to take a look. They should look like this, nice and neat and stretchy, because you do need it to stretch. And they should look identical to the other end of your project. I did tighten mine just a little bit, and you can too if you like. I'll put a link in the description. And then when you're completely done, you can go ahead and weave in your ends. And I basically just sew the leftover yarn and then cut. Alright, you could do the same on the other end, and then you're ready for part 2, which is, are you ready? Yeah. Let's do it. It's an I-cord. So get the working yarn and again secure it to your anchor peg, and we're going to wrap 3 pegs. So peg number 3, we're going to knit 2 times. So knit off, tighten the working yarn, bring it back around to the front, and knit that peg again. Then you're going to knit the next 2 pegs, and you're just basically laying the yarn flat over the next 2 pegs and knit off. So it's a flat knit that we're using. Then take your yarn behind those pegs, tighten, and you're just going to go behind those 3 pegs, wrap around, and lay the yarn loosely over the 3 pegs and knit off. Pulling on that middle one nice and tight to tighten that loop right there, because the back is basically loose. And you're going to do the same one with peg number 1. You're going to take the loop and pull on it and tighten things, and now tighten again and wrap around. You're bringing in the yarn nice and tight from behind and wrapping, and you see it right here where the back yarn is just laying back there. And then with the yarn flat, pull on these loops before you knit off. That's going to tighten everything. So pull on them, knit off, then come back with your yarn, tighten, and wrap from behind, come back to the forward and knit off. Always tightening those loops before you knit off. So to the back, wrap, come to the front, and knit off those 3 pegs. And you're going to continue to do that for the length that you need for your I-cord, which should be at least 6 inches more on each end than you need. Don't forget to take the knot off the anchor peg as you continue to knit your I-cord. Now, you're going to have to measure as you go along, and your I-cord is going to look like this. It looks really funky. You have to pull on it for it to take shape and so that the length is actual, right? Here's what it looks like. It's a lot shorter than it really is. When you pull on it, it takes shape and it gets longer. So you're going to, knit a few rows, then stretch out your stitches. And when you have it the length that you need, you're going to pull on your working yarn, and then you're going to knit that first peg again, and then move it over and knit off. And I did mess up on this cast off of the I-cord, so you're going to see me bring that cord on over and knit off. And really, I needed to knit off again, but I didn't. I cut my yarn early. So I'm going to give you a link in the description to how I did my I-cord. There's a separate video just for this. But really, if I had knit off one more time, this would have worked perfectly. But because I didn't, I actually had to undo right here. See, I had to undo the back knotting, and you don't need to do that. If you just do one more knit before you cut your yarn, you can just pull it off. Okay, but here's my correction, and maybe it's a good thing for you guys to see it in case you do the same boo-boo. Alright, now make a knot, and your I-cord is basically done. See? Now just make sure that you stretch out your stitches throughout all of your I-cord. And again, that it is at least, I would say at least 12 inches longer than the width of your skirt. Okay, that's on a minimum. If you can make it 16 inches, that's great. It's all about how long you want your I-cord. Personally, I like to add hardware to the end of my I-cord to protect it. So go ahead and put that last bit of working yarn back through a loop, get your scissors and cut the excess yarn. Then I get a clamp, a ribbon clamp or bookend clamp, and I put it on that very edge, and I get some pliers and go ahead and secure it. And then I get a jump ring, an open jump ring, and with 2 pliers I open that up and add a cute charm just so that it's protected and it looks good. And I put that charm and in the jump ring, I close it up, and there you have a nice looking and to your I-cords. Now I want to say thanks to Carol from Promise Learning, Valerie, and Clarissa for covering the cost of closed captioning. Now let's add that second piece to your first one. This is on the long side. I'm going through the edge loops, and I am adding the I-cord. So you see that I have these big loops right here, and they have a nice opening, and your I-cord will fit perfectly through there. So you're basically weaving in and out of these loops your I-cord. And like I said, this is the top part of your wrap. It's what's going to help it to be secure around your waist. And because it kind of gets wrinkled in, it will custom fit you. So you can have it pretty tight or open, really closed up, however you feel most comfortable. Well guys, that is the project. I hope you like it, and you'll tag me on Instagram so I can see lots of these in different colors. Thanks a lot, and come back and loom with me again.